Testing one, two, three. Testing one, two, three.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Chad does that, so I have to do it too. Is that too loud? Chad isn't here tonight, but I am. So we're going to sing one song for the next hour, okay? I think you're going to know this one when you're going to know this one when we start because I found this in the Baptist hymnal. Okay. Open my eyes that I may see. Open my eyes that I may see glimpses of truth thou hast for me. Is in my hands the wonderful key that shall unclasp and set me free. Silently now I wait for thee. Ready, my God, thy will to see. Open my eyes, illumine me, Spirit divine. You do that a lot better standing. Open my ears that I may hear voices of truth thou sendest clear. And while the wave notes fall on my ear, everything false will disappear. Silently now I wait for thee. Ready, my God, my will to see. Open my eyes, illumine me, Spirit divine. Open my mouth and let me bear gladly the warm truth everywhere. Open my heart and let me prepare love with thy children thus to share. Silently now I wait for thee. Ready, my God, thy will to see. Open my eyes, illumine me, Spirit divine.
Be seated. Testing. Are we okay? Just making sure everyone is awake, right? I'm not Pastor Chad. I want you to know I'm really excited to be here because I am so pro pastors and wives going away. I'll tell you what, I am so pro girl time, just for one of the same reasons. The reason I support girl time is that when my wife comes back from girl time, she's a much easier creature to live with. So men benefit. I don't know what you women do, don't want to know. But when you're done with girl time, you're just easier to be around, okay? And it's the same thing, I think. I just want Pastor Chad and Melissa, they're up at Lake Havasu, and they're up there with Denny and Marilyn, and I just hope they have a great time away and just enjoy themselves, whatever they're doing. And I really hope they come back refreshed. They have good conversation. They just enjoy each other and come back. I'm a little disappointed, though, because when Pastor Chad spoke in chapel, he was nonstop old person joke on me. So I was hoping the first time I spoke here in a while, he'd be sitting out there so I could really nail him with some about how young and inexperienced he is or something, because he opened the door wide. So if you ever see me up on a stage and I start nailing him on humor about his youth and inexperience, it's because he opened the door in chapel when I was sitting out there. Okay? The other thing I want to say is go Seahawks. Any Seahawks here? I do have to say, though, that they're not as exciting as the Freedom Christian Academy girls soccer team. We're 4-0. Those girls are tough. Those girls are tough. I do want to say I had my first complaint about Mr. Webb from one of the parents. I'm not going to say the name because I want him to squirm a little bit. But it's the mom of one of your forwards, and she's very loud and in Spanish. You know exactly what I'm talking about, don't you? She's on the sidelines, and her complaint was, Mr. Webb doesn't yell at the girls enough he should be shouting at them, shouting at them. I said, well, if we're 4-0, I think I want him to keep doing what he's doing, right? But that was one of the moms, and then here I am over at Veritas jumping up and down with this Hispanic mom while she's yelling Spanish. I mean, you get carried away in these games, right? So it's a lot of fun. And I do need to tell you that it's really a great job being principal. Those kids are wonderful. So I've got a lot to say tonight, and so I'm not going to be like Chad, though, and get you out late. So, see, I got to tease him. So I want to open up the floor for prayer, and if you have prayer requests, and I'll just put Chad and Melissa at the top of the list. This is still hot, isn't it? It's still, when I get over here, it gets kind of echoey. So I'll put Chad and Melissa first on the list, that they will just have a great time together. Just a simple refreshment away from Yuma, and that they can enjoy each other's company. Okay, so Chad and Melissa, do you have other prayer requests? Safety. Yeah, it's tragic. Yeah. Thank you. Sure, yes. Hold on. Can you give me a first name? Right. Okay. Other prayer requests? What, do we have a healthy mom and healthy baby? And first name of your son? And you know, that could have been my wife and I when we had our third baby. Times were very, very tight. Yeah. Absolutely.
Maybe prayer for the folks in Middletown, an hour from our hometown there in Canada, in British Columbia. It's called Tumbler Ridge, and the shooter went into the high school, and there's 10 dead people now, which is something that is extremely rare.
That's Tumble Ridge, Alberta?
It's actually in BC. It's on the
BC.
BC side.
Okay. Okay.
So my sister-in-law and my niece are down in Costa Rica right now. They're working with the girls that have been rescued from sex trafficking.
Wow.
And their families, the majority of them have families sold the girls. And so they're working with the girls and trying to help recover.
Your sister-in-law's name?
My sister,
All right, we'll pray for those at the end of the service tonight. Thank you. To start off with, I want you to know if you talk, I'm going to give you demerits during class. Got to get some humor in here. I want to start by talking about why I'm really optimistic about Freedom Christian Academy and the future of the ministry. I think part of that's my job, but you know, when I reached out to friends of 30 and 40 and 50 and 60 years and told them what we were considering in the ministry here and what it was going like in the situation, I was shocked by what they told me. These are people that have known me, some of them for 60 years, and watched me, and they said, Craig, we're not surprised at all, and we just think you're the perfect person for the job. People that have known for 60 years, people of faith and younger, people that we raised, ones younger than that we raised our kids with. So a cloud of witnesses, my cloud of witnesses from outside of Yuma are praying for this, for you, for Valley Christian Academy, for Freedom Christian Academy. And when I came in, that gave me so much confidence walking into this job. You got to remember back what it was like in October, early October, okay? When I was introduced here, the first Sunday in October, I was stunned. I thought, who would leave such a powerful group of prayerful warriors? I stepped up here and saw this sea of gray hair, all supporting, and I thought, I was really moved just by you to know that there's this large group of prayer warriors that are there for support, for love, to be there during the good days and the bad. And that filled me with a lot of confidence. I want you to know that. The children are absolutely amazing. I can't walk out of the door out here without these children yelling, Mr. Holmes, Mr. Holmes, Mr. Holmes. And I got to wear a hat, and this is my hat for Valentine's Day, and it'll be retired, and I'll have one that is probably for St. Patrick's Day. And they want to know when I'm going to get a new hat, and I get hugs, and they are just so amazing and loving. And then the staff. I went in to meet the staff, and I have a lot of experience from a board level. I was on a school board of 10,000 students, and we had over 1,100 employees. And you can imagine all of the, in 10 years' time, all the investigations that I witnessed because of various things. And the contract negotiations with the classified and certified employees and how much work it was to get these groups together. And so I go into the building over there, and I see the staff sitting there, and I just tell them, I said, here's who I am. I just need you to know that what you've been through was a whole bunch of baloney, because it's absolutely impossible to do what needs to be done in an investigation in that short a time and have it be decent and orderly and honorable. It can't happen. And so wherever you are, I just want you to know that what you went through was a horrible experience, and I'm so sorry, and I'm here to help, okay? But it was not done in a professional manner. It couldn't possibly be, okay? I'm sorry this is ringing. The staff is very united. We have an awesome, united staff of teachers, volunteers, to a person. They're all in. They chose to stay. Through that, they decided to stay. And they are all, to a person, extremely supportive going forward for the mission of Freedom Christian Academy, and that fills me with confidence. Okay. And I've grown to love them. I've grown to love them. The leadership. Pastor Chad and Melissa and Juan and I formed the kind of core group at the top. And I want you to know, Chad and Melissa are great people to work with. They just are. And I'm going to go into some of that with about Pastor Chad in a few minutes. But Melissa, her daughter's here, Mrs. Matheny, Mrs. Matheny, you've heard me say this. She is so kind and she's so detail-oriented. And sometimes you don't get that together because they want everybody else. Why can't everybody else master details the way I do? So when I mess up, because I'm not, I'm a visionary, this is how she chews me out. Mr. Holmes, did you remember to da-da-da-da-da-da-da? And I go, I forgot another detail. But she is always kind in that. And I used a metaphor, which she told me to stop. And today was a great day because she used the metaphor finally. Because when we were talking to parents, I would say, Mrs. Matheny founded this school and she knows where the bodies are buried. And she hates that metaphor, but I got to tell you, I don't have a better one. But I challenge you to ask her any question about Freedom Christian Academy that she can't answer. I bet she can't. Okay, because she started the school and has been in it for so long, and so she's really we are partners. We work together through the whole day on different things, and if there's parents that are interested in putting their children here, she and I are in the same room, and she is wonderful to work with. Okay, just want you to know that we get along great. Another thing that filled me with great confidence was, do you remember the business meeting in October when how many of you were here for that business meeting? Okay, when Pastor Chad said, I'm sorry, he apologized about the check, and I was sitting back here and I couldn't talk because I'm a member now, I wasn't a member then, okay? I was so impressed because everyone that came to that meeting were all prayed up. The congregation asked wonderful questions, good questions, solid questions. And I'm describing it right, aren't I? It was an excellent business meeting where work was done to better the church. And so I'm out there as the new, can you imagine how I'd felt in confidence if there had been a food fight? See what I mean? If the chairs were started moving around, ooh. But I was just so thankful. Obviously, the Spirit of God is in this place. And obviously, you are a group of people that not just hears the word, but you study it for yourself and pray. And you were prepared that night to do business for the church to go forward. And as a new person, newest one on the payroll, that really gives me confidence that going forward, we're going to have a great program with the school. Because when there is a problem, I don't worry about bringing it to you. Okay, if there's a time, it's going to be like this. If we have to come because there's a problem and talk to you about it, I have no fear about that because I know your character from that business meeting. You follow that? And if we can solve problems together, we're going to move forward. Okay. The facilities. This school hasn't God blessed us with beautiful, gorgeous facilities? Hasn't God been good that we get to come and be in this beautiful place? And so when new parents come in, they notice that. They notice that the place is well kept up and that we have a good grounds crew that keeps it kept up. And we can thank God for that. This is a pretty good list, isn't it? Okay, you haven't disagreed with me yet, have you? Let me see. The demographics of the school. So the place where we really need God to act is we have very few kids 8th grade and up. And there's some kids there that are very lonely. But if you look 7th grade and down, we're very strong, which means mathematically, my degree was in math. If you add even 20 kindergarten kids and hold your own, you're going to grow by 20, you're going to grow each year for the next 5 years. You follow that? So for 5 years, we can have very strong growth just by taking great care of who God has brought us and letting it grow naturally. We've got a real opportunity to grow. We've got another reason to grow, which I'm not thankful for, but it is what it is. Since COVID, public education has taken a radical turn from traditional values. And we have families that are coming in that are, some of them start weeping. When I just say our standard, like it's a normal standard, like we believe in traditional values, this is my spiel. If you come in with a kid, we are a Christian school. We just want to make sure we're on the same page. This is a Christian school. Every staff member is a born-again believer in Jesus Christ. They all go to Bible-attending churches, Bible-believing churches throughout the community. If you place your child with us, they will be in chapel. They will be taught Bible, and they will have scripture memory. We just want to make sure, are you okay with that? Because this is who we are. We just want to be transparent, okay? And then in addition to that, we'll say we believe in traditional values that there's only 2 genders, okay? And we just want to we're not trying to smack the world. We're saying this is who we are, and we're very comfortable with who we are, and that's what your child will be taught. Are you okay with that? One lady, Rosa, and she speaks, she's got very limited education, and it's all from Mexico. So she's almost all Spanish. So it goes through a translator to her, and here comes tears down her face. This is a pretty funny story, and she says, and it comes back to the translator, Rosa says this is what she's been praying for. Well, her son had been bullied in the public school, and she wanted him here. Well, he overcompensated. He had been bullied, and he was real shy. He got a demerit for mouthing off in class, so we got to dial him back one notch. Once he wasn't bullied, he came out of his shell, but we got to tip him back one notch to get him where he needed to be because he got a demerit for mouthing off. But, sorry. But the state of public education. Final one is, our school looks a lot like Yuma. And what I mean by that is if you walk in, both of our secretaries are Hispanic and are strongly bilingual. Did you know 70 to 80% of the students in this county are Hispanic? You shouldn't be shocked that it's above 50%. And one of the things I did right away was made sure that there's paperwork is in Spanish as well, because they're going to sign it in English, because this is an English-speaking school. But for parents whose language is strongest in Spanish, this is their children. They need to understand and comprehend what they're signing, so they can read in Spanish if that's more comfortable and then sign it in English. You see what we're doing? And we said that we want them to communicate in their strongest language when we're doing business about their child, because we want them to comprehend, because these are important decisions they're making. You follow that? And so we're just very open. I mean, in class, it's all English, because they need English, and that's well understood. But if it's business and the parents where English is their second language, we want to make sure they have full comprehension of who we are and how they're working with the child. So we look like Yuma. I was giving, and that's the reasons why I'm optimistic about Freedom Christian Academy. I want to ask for a prayer request. I've been going through the book of Zechariah in devotions with our staff, okay? And not as a Bible study because it's 7:30 in the morning, but finding verses to give them hope for the day. We're just tipping to the top of it. Here's something for you to encourage you. Now go get them, okay? Because it's 7:30 in the morning. And so going through the book of Zechariah, as the prophet has already prophesied that you remember the book of Zechariah is about the children of Israel have come out of captivity and they're starting over. And they're back in Jerusalem. Jerusalem is a mess. And so the children of Israel are getting discouraged. They had to cast lots to see who was actually going to live in Jerusalem because it was tumbled down, nothing worked, it was just a mess, okay? So how do you keep people working and to rebuild the kingdom of God? So God had already said that he was going to do it, that God was going to rebuild the kingdom of God in Jerusalem. But then he says this, ask rain from the Lord in the season of the spring rain, from the Lord who makes the storm clouds. He will give them showers of rain to everyone, the vegetation in the field. Even though he said he was going to do it, he still told them to pray. Okay? God is going to rebuild Freedom Christian Academy. Will you pray for rain? Will you pray that it pours rain? Okay? Even though it's God that's going to do it, can you pray for rain for Freedom Christian Academy, that he'll send the right students and get the word out? The biggest reason why we need growth is people just don't know, and we need to get the word out. Okay, so if you can help us to pray for rain, I would really appreciate it as we work hard to rebuild. I'm just going to keep going on this. So how I got into this, I was walking in Montana with the woman I love in the woods, and we had gotten a text about Pastor Chad resigning, and I texted him and just to see, because sometimes friends from out of town can be a way to vent, right? And so I wanted to, so I just said, Chad, if you need to talk, here I am. So I'm walking with my dear wife in the woods in Montana, and the phone rings, and it's Chad, Pastor Chad. And I said, can I put you on speakerphone because I'm with my wife? And he says, absolutely. So he starts talking about what's happening here. This is after he'd resigned. He says, Craig, I'm thinking about going back in, but I just want to ask you a question. If the church will have me back, will you come and be the interim principal of Freedom Christian Academy? Now, I've been retired for 5 years. I wasn't looking for a job of any kind, right? And I'm so glad my wife was right there to hear it right from the horse's mouth, because if I had come home and said, I think I've got a job in Yuma, she would have come after me with a stick. You know? But she heard it straight from Pastor Chad. So we're walking, and we get back to the fifth wheel. And my wife, if this isn't a sign from God, she sits me down. She says, look at me. She goes, well, yes, ma'am. I think you're the guy for the job, Greg. I think you're uniquely qualified for this job with what we've been through together. I just want to make one thing clear. Yes, ma'am. What is it? They're hiring you. They're not hiring me. So that's Mrs. Holmes. She can make she can make herself known with what she believes in. Okay, if you get to know her. Well, tonight I want to talk about reconciliation and what that might look like. There's an advantage of age, perspective. One of the great things about being ancient is that we've seen things, all right? We've seen people reconcile. We've seen some things take time. You got to listen to one more story. Long ago, in a galaxy far, far away, I was a young elder with a man named, under the new leadership of a young pastor named Pastor John. And he was new pastor, took over a larger church for us. It was a church probably 500 or 600 and had a multiple staff. And right away, he jumped out of the gate and was making a huge mistake. This is going to end up being about Pastor Chad in a minute. He was going to let the children's pastor go, who is our kids' children's pastor, because he wanted to take the ministry in another direction. Now, that's a senior pastor's prerogative. It wasn't what he was doing. It was how he was doing it was going to divide the church. He was doing what he thought was right in the wrong way as a young pastor. And he would tell this story. He's told this story many times. Because I walked into his office and closed the door to the senior pastor. We need to have a conversation because the way you're going to split the church wide open. And we had it out, and then we got the children's pastor on the phone, and he came down, and I saw the relationship mend, okay? And then the next Sunday, the two of them did communion together up front. And then this pastor stayed about 6 months, and he had a decent time he wanted time to wrap up his ministry. That's all he wanted, okay? Pastor John has thanked me over and over and over throughout the years. He says, you saved my friendship, you saved my ministry, because you had the courage to walk in and close the door because I had a relationship. I want you to know what Pastor Chad said when I told him that story. This is your pastor when I told him that story. Craig, that's exactly what I want you to do to me. If you ever see me doing something wrong, I want you to come in and close the door. He wants that information. That's Pastor Chad, okay? 20 years go by, and I'm back on the elder board. This time, the church is in decline 20 years later. And we took out we sent all kinds of questionnaires out to talk to people about what was going on, and it came back, and I was one of 3 of the elders that got the short end of the stick to go in and talk to Pastor John about a declining church situation. Pastor John is a very good friend of mine, still a good friend of mine. He looked at the data, and he looked at us, and he said, you know, you are absolutely right. I agree with everything you said. I'm not the man. I'm going to submit my resignation with no church out there, okay? No church. We were in shock, and so he went through with it. You know, he became the pastor of another church 10 miles away that was struggling, and that church just took off, and he is still in the ministry today, okay, at my age. 70-year-old, 71-year-old man, full-time senior pastor, thriving church on the South Hill of Spokane. He's one of the people I called about this, and I want to tell you what he did. He got in he says, where are you? I'm at my house. I'll be right there. So here he comes in his car, comes down, and we talk, and he puts his hands on me and prays, and he says, if they need a letter of recommendation, Craig, I think you're the guy for the job. And then he says, I told him about the truck and the check. He goes, come here, Craig. Look out the window. You see that car right there? Yeah. That's owned by the church. They do exactly the same thing as Freedom Baptist Church does. Okay? John Underhill. He is here in spirit, and he wants to be a part of this ministry through prayer because he's a 40-year friend. A 40-year friend, Pastor John. I became the interim pastor in his absence for a year. Church of 500. I had a youth pastor, a children's pastor, a minister of music, missionary pastor, full-time maintenance person, secretary, blah, 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 and did that in addition to a full-time job for a year until they called a new pastor, Pastor Joe Persh, and he's been there for 11 years. The church has gone on. You follow that? So in that process, I'm sorry for these stories, but I'm trying to show you about reconciliation and what the future might look like, okay, if you're reading between the lines. This church had a school called Valley Christian School. And in the process of that school, they went on dark times, very dark times. One of my good friends, Randy Knigge, his son played on the basketball team. The coach punched him in the chest. Was all over the news, big crisis. There was an attorney whose wife put out a full-page ad regularly in the Spokesman Review saying what a rotten school it was. My friend's son committed suicide over it, okay, because of all the public pressure. The staff member, his teacher's life certificate was revoked by the state of Washington. the school was evicted from this church. Evicted. The principal was fired. Reconciliation, okay? That happened when I wasn't there. I was on the school board watching this from afar and talking in and out, trying to help. But I wasn't involved in any of that. But after I was off the school board, I came back to church and was on the board, and I was there when the church and the school reconciled. Valley Christian School today is a school of 650 students. Okay? So after those conflicts, all right, if you follow the math, Pastor John is serving, right? The school is thriving. You follow these, why I'm talking about reconciliation? Joe Persh, my successor, came, and as far as I know, he's doing fine. Through all that, God has worked over the years, okay, to reconcile and build the kingdom of God, even through those dark times. Sometimes there's times like this. That's all I can tell you is if we're going to serve the Lord in his church, there's seasons like this. There's seasons that are glorious. There's seasons that are hard. But God works through it all. Valley Christian back then was just the same size as we are now. Now they're 650, 20 years later. You follow that? Okay, you see how that works? We need to stay faithful, people. We need to stay faithful. I want to come down and just make a personal statement that I am 100% on the side of openness, non-defensiveness, and reconciliation. Okay? If you know of anybody through this that wants to talk or just needs somebody to talk to, I'm open to listen. I am 100% for reconciliation, even if it takes 10 or 20 years. I might not be here then, but okay, you follow that? And I want to talk about it from a biblical perspective in the time we have left. I want to look at Jacob and Esau. If you can put those verses up on the board now. Jacob and Esau. Do you remember that Jacob stole Esau's birthright? And Jacob fled, and he worked for his uncle Laban. Does anybody know how long it took before they reconciled? Can you do the math? He had to work 7 years, and he got Leah, right? Another 7 years, and he ended up with Rachel. Then they had a whole bunch of kids, right? So there's 14 plus, it was 20 years, okay? And then this is what it looks like. Genesis 33, 1 through 11. This is what it looks like. And Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau was coming, and 400 men with him. So he divided the children among Leah and Rachel and the 2 female servants. And he put the servants with their children in front, then Leah with her children, and Rachel and Joseph last of all. He himself went on before them, bowing himself to the ground 7 times until he came near to his brother. But Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him. And they wept. And when Esau lifted up his eyes, he saw the woman and the children and said, "Who are these with you?" Jacob said, "The children whom God has graciously given your servant." Then the servants drew near, they and their children, and bowed down. Leah likewise with her children drew near and bowed down. And last, Joseph and Rachel drew near, and they bowed down. Esau said, "What do you mean with all this company that I met?" Jacob answered, "To find favor in the sight of my Lord." But Esau said, "I have enough, my brother. Keep what you have for yourself." Jacob said, "No, please. If I have found favor in your sight, then accept my present from my hand. For I have seen your face, which is like seeing the face of God, that you have accepted me. Please accept my blessing that is brought to you, because God has dealt graciously with me, because I have enough." Thus he urged him, and he took it. 2 brothers reunited, 20 years. Okay? Okay? Are you okay with taking 20? I'm not going to be here in 20 years. But okay? But we're going to work for it, aren't we? be on this team of reconciliation. Joseph and his brothers. Any idea how long it took Joseph to reconcile? Remember the story in Genesis? So it was approximately 22 years, all right? And so remember that they sold Joseph, do you remember, to the Ishmaelites. He was 17 years old when he was sold into slavery, 17. He rose to power. He was 30 years old when he entered the service of Pharaoh, having spent 13 years in slavery and prison. There were 7 years of abundance that passed after his promotion. You remember the visions? 7 years of plenty, and then there's going to be 7 years of famine. So the reconciliation occurred during the second year of the famine, making Joseph approximately 39 years old when they reconciled. So from age 17 until he was 39 when they reconciled. So I want to read Genesis 50, verses 15 through 21. This is after Isaac has passed away. So Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead and said, "It may be that Joseph will hate us and pay us back for all the evil that we did to him." So they sent a message to Joseph saying, "Your father gave this command before he died. Say to Joseph, please forgive the transgression of your brothers and their sin, because they did evil to you. And now please forgive the transgression of the servants of God your father." And Joseph wept, and when they spoke to him. His brothers also came and fell down before him, because we are your servants. But Joseph said to him, this is what reconciliation is like, "Do not fear, for am I in the place of God? For as you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring it about that many people should be kept alive as they are today. So do not fear. I will provide for you and your little ones." Thus he comforted them and spoke kindly to them. We're going to be on the team of reconciliation, aren't we? That's who we are. That's the character of who we are in faith. That's the team that we're on, to be open and reaching out with our arms. Reconciliation takes time. Romans 12:18 says, if possible, so far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all. How are we doing? Oh, we've got time. In another world, when I was, this part isn't biblical. Well, it is biblical. Let's go through one more verse. 1 Corinthians 14:40 says, "But all things should be done decently and in order." Decently and in order. That leaves a wide pathway for methods. There are lots of different methods that are fine when you're working with groups of faith. They need to be honorable. They need to be honest, right? They need to be decent and orderly. God is not the author of what? God is not the author of chaos or confusion. Yes. So if there's chaos, that's not God's plan. God wants things done decently and in order, okay? So I wanted to just go through some possible steps that for you to look at of what reconciliation might look like if it doesn't take 20 years, okay? So if you can put the next steps on, let's see what comes up here. Are they not there? Okay, I'll read them then. To reconcile, both sides need to be interested in reconciliation. It takes two to tango. If one side is interested, but the other, then that means we wait and pray and we love. Okay. Both sides agree to a process. Okay. In technical terms, when you're working with big organizations, you form a working group to work through the conflicts. Okay. The boards need to agree on what size those groups are. But watch this. both sides have veto power about who's going to be on the other side. So in other words, if you're on one side of a team and there's a conflict and you load it up with all your people that are going to trigger the other side, the other board can say, I don't want that one, I don't want that one, I don't want that one. To a point. You give them so many times that they can say, no, that one's not going to work. So that in the end, and you can do that to them too. So in the end, you get a group together that both boards believe they can work with. So you find people from both sides where the boards can both agree that this is going to be a group that is going to look at all the issues. In the end, both boards approve this working committee. They sign off and say, I give my approval to give this working group authority to look at the problems between the two organizations. You follow? See how transparent that is? Okay. So now this group, mixed of both parties, has the blessing of both governing boards. The working group then starts to work together, and there's a process that you go through. You don't just turn people loose. They all have training together. They all go through exactly the same training. There's lots of trainers out there, and the reason you do is some people, I'll just talk school board stuff, okay? You have people that have been through contract negotiations every 2 years for years and years and years, and they know this process backwards, and you have brand new people. It doesn't matter. You still go through the training even if you've been through it 10 times. Everybody goes through exactly the same training because you know why? You want everybody on this team to be in the same place. You follow that? So they go through the training together. When we did it, we weren't even allowed to sit together. So there'd be somebody from the school district, somebody from the union, somebody from the school district, somebody from the union, all there around the table. You couldn't even sit next to somebody from the school district. I had union people on both sides, and they had school district people on both sides. See how you work it? Okay. There is the working group then talks, and the first thing that you talk about is you form a working protocol. How are we going to do business together? You don't even start until you lay out the ground rules for this group. That's the first piece of business. Let me give you some common sense ground rules that these groups have. One of the big ones is no private information. If I know it, I give it to whoever's chairing the meeting and they pass it out to everybody. If somebody gives me a slip of paper, did you know this? I hand it to the chairperson and they pass it out. So everybody in this group, you see how that builds trust? No private information. Everybody's dealing with the same set of facts. All discussions are absolutely confidential. Any member breaks confidentiality, they're gone. You have to have trust. So the next thing you talk about is how sacred confidentiality is for this working group while you're discussing issues. You follow that? These are just some of them. Any and all findings then are passed on to the different boards in a timely manner. Okay, so when we do come up with a finding, when the team of both parties comes up with an issue that's resolved, you don't sit on it. You give it to the boards, and they deal with it as they will. You say, we found this out, here's our documentation, but that committee is not to do anything with it except give it to the governing boards. You follow that? So what you get if you're Mr. Webb, you get, we looked into this, here's what we determined, here's all the information, we've got all the backing information, we couldn't find anything wrong here, it's up to you to talk to the church or not talk to the church. You follow that? See how that works? Because you do not want to because this group is not the board. This group has no authority over the church. It's the deacon board that is the one you look to. They can look at it and make a determination of what to do. But this committee is giving them all the backing and information. Here's the voided checks, here's the receipts, here's the transcript of the interview, here's this, here's that, this is our finding, how that fits to the body of Christ. Okay. Now what happens in these situations and why confidentiality is so important, 80 to 90% of allegations disappear because they don't have facts. Okay? So if the allegation is that you got 3 speeding tickets 20 miles an hour over the speed limit going down Fortuna, and you're a rotten apple and you shouldn't be allowed to drive children, okay? That's the allegation, okay? It goes to this group, and this is the allegation, and then we say, can you please show us your driving record? And it's held done in strict confidence, and you've got an excellent driving record, okay? The group says that it's unfounded. He's got an excellent driving record. We didn't need to know that you were 5 miles over the speed limit 15 years ago. That's not relevant. If there's anything else on there, it's not a fishing expedition. It's only to see if the allegations against you were correct, and since they're incorrect, that information goes to both boards. You see why it needs to be so confidential? Okay? It's not a fishing expedition. When you go through processes like that, okay, what you'll find is that it's quiet because most of the stuff, it gets rid of all of the gossip. And then at the end, you have some issues where people need to apologize. You follow that? And then the deacons will look at it and go, Pastor Chad, they were confused by what you said here. Can you make amends? Or whatever. But it's a tiny list. And it's a sacred list. And you see reconciliation happen. Now, in the time when our board did this with Valley Christian School, I was in the meeting at the end. And we sang some songs together. We did communion together. And we embraced. And after all this time, but it took a process, an honorable, dignified process. Also, there's help out there. There are so many organizations that are far better than the person in front of you because that's their profession. They are peacemakers. Blessed are the peacemakers, okay? So what I want to say is I want to be very hopeful tonight. I want you to know, and you can tell anybody, you probably have friends that are out that have left, that as the principal of Freedom Christian Academy, I'm 100% supportive of Pastor Chad and Melissa. I'm 100% supportive of this church, and I'm 100% supportive of reconciliation, an honorable, real reconciliation process. And I'll always be that way because in my life, I've seen the value of it, even though it's taken years. Is that okay? You with me on that? You understand what I'm trying to say tonight? So I just need to close. Oh, I can't close early. That's not done, is it? I'll rub it in. What?
We're going to tell off on you.
I didn't want to go that deep in the end, but I did want to say those things, and thank you for being patient and getting that off my chest, and you know where I stand on those things. I just want you to know I love being here. I really do. And it's a really an honor to be a part of this church and to be with you folks. So let's just, do you have any questions about that before I close?
Just want to say we're happy to have you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So let's pray, and then you'll be dismissed. And you can tell Chad you survived. Father,